What's up, everyone? TDR Trade to Black, Big Smoke, Toronto, Canada, TSX. Good friend Jason Wild. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How was the? Heard you ran into a little bit of trouble.
A little bit of trouble. Sat on the runway for 3 hours in Miami.
Did you?
Yeah.
Why?
And don't tell Zion, but my flight, I didn't know. I got to Miami Airport, and then my assistant informed me that my flight was out of Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, no.
But we were able to find a similar flight out of Miami. But then I got on that flight, I was out of the runway for 3 hours because there was like a ground stop.
Yeah.
But made it. Just walked in the door.
Everybody always wants to know where you are. This whole party just didn't start until Jason came in, right? Anyways, big day tomorrow. So you got an investor day at the TSX. We don't see a lot of companies do this, but maybe talk about what's on the agenda. Tim Seymour is coming up from New York from CNBC. He's going to be moderating this. But what is some of the dialogue that you've heard leading up to this that made you want to come up with this idea in the first place?
Sure. So we actually have done 2 investor days in the past. We did one in 2019, which feels like forever ago, and 2020. Summer 2020. Okay. So we've done them in the past. But as you know, things have not been so awesome in the cannabis space for the last couple of years. We didn't feel like we necessarily had all the best stuff to talk about and have another analyst day. But I feel like to a certain extent, like this is sort of a sign or the signal, at least like from us, that we do feel more comfortable having.
That's encouraging though.
Again.
For you to host this, say not much to talk about. People feel like this is different this time from what's happened this fall.
Yeah.
So little things like this kind of add to the sentiment that we've turned a corner, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can speak more about us than the whole space.
Yeah.
But we feel like we've definitely turned the corner. And and overall, I think I mentioned this to you last time I was on with you guys last week. Like the cannabis, overall business in the U.S. It's not. It got better, say, earlier this year, maybe, or even the second half of last year, where things were for that first year or so. If you remember, we were the first ones to pre-announce negatively, or withdraw our guidance back in the summer of 20 because we felt like things were feeling a little weird. And we had our own issues in PA. And then everybody else sort of within the next 6 months became clear that everybody else was going to have some issues as well. But at this point, like, we feel like that was about 4 quarters or so of like every quarter be like, okay, let's go recut our forecast and be conservative based upon the new reality. And then like every quarter we were still sort of missing what we thought were conservative numbers. That was up till last summer.
Okay.
And last summer was when we started to, that's when we turned cash flow from operations positive in Q3. We had taken out all those expenses a few months earlier. But we started to feel like, okay, this business has started to become more predictable again.
Yeah.
But we were like, but we got to fix our freaking balance sheet because if safe doesn't happen, if you're, and this is the issue I think with a lot of the other MSOs and operators now who didn't really fix their balance sheet, is like now they're making a little money or doing a little better than they were doing, before the summer last year. But when you carry that much debt, you have to be making a good amount of money, not just a little bit of money. And that's and that's where we realized we've got to take our debt down because we got to get our interest payments down. Yeah. Because we want to be, and we're right on the cusp of being fully cash flow positive.
It's the feedback that we hear, right?
Yeah, it's detrimental to the businesses. Shoring up the balance sheet is imperative moving into the next couple of years, whether we get regulatory reform or not. And this has been great so far. I got to meet the chief legal officer, head of marketing. What is the biggest takeaway that you and the team want investors and analysts to come away with?
Great question.
After tomorrow.
Yeah, and thanks for getting me back on track to your question, because the other thing was that we wanted to do this because we wanted people to see the people that are like really doing most of the work.
It's great.
See behind just the top 3, because people have probably heard our shtick, a bunch of times already. Yeah. You want to hear from the people that are doing the work, and we want to have everybody get to know them. They're freaking awesome. They're the ones that are driving a lot of the success and the improvement that we've made operationally over the last year, and that is and we want people to be able to like ask them questions and really get a good feel for that these guys know what they're talking
Yeah.
about.
So it'll be a pretty interactive day tomorrow. We'll be able to ask Q&A.
Yeah.
We'll be able to interact with several facets of the business.
But
Right.
the key is you're
Exactly.
taking the initiative in a lot of things. Like a lot of companies, look, we got to clean up our debt. You did that as peers of the MSOs first one to list on the TSX.
Right.
A lot of positive feedback where a lot of institutions in Chicago a couple weeks ago talked about capital structure.
Yeah.
Your name is often used as an example. What was that experience like for you in Chicago? I know you're there briefly, but
Yeah.
you were a keynote speaker.
It was super brief, and I had, as you know, I don't know if I talked about it much. I came down with what's called Bell's palsy, where 2 weeks earlier, where half my face is paralyzed, and my main panels about what we did with the TSX, and it's not because our stock has acted so amazingly the last couple of months, and we can get into that as well, and my thoughts on that. But the fact is, our volume was up, I forgot what it was, 150% or so, even before the HHS news, and that's all, as I discussed with you guys last week, like the main thing we thought was they would drive more volume. We didn't know where it was going to come from. And when people asked about custody, which was sort of the number U.S. institutional custody, we told people we didn't know, and it seems like that's been solved. We don't know of anybody that's having problems anymore with their prime brokers holding our shares. And I think, I read online that Boris Jordan was talking about the TSX tonight on a Spaces.
I missed that
as well.
They released yesterday that they applied to list their subordinate voting shares on the TSX.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we
Sorry, I missed that first part. Go on, sorry.
So what would you say to someone that would say, well, you listed on the TSX, the stock was at X, now it's at Y?
That's easy. The stock, I mean, it's all, you have to pull back a little bit and look, our stock was up, I forgot what it was, 70% on the year before the HHS news came out. And, practically every other stock was, or most every other stock was negative or substantially negative on the year. And, I think we sort of did such a good job at bulletproofing the business so that we would, remember we put out the press release on July 4th, first day trading, we said it's our day of independence, based on all the things we've done over the last year, over the last 12 months, and culminating with today's listing on the TSX. We believe that we are independent of the need for any reform, but maybe we did such a good job explaining that to people that when it looked like reform was coming, that they plowed into some of the names that needed a lot more and that were really given a lifeline and that are less liquid and have higher short interest. When you have some of these companies, the equity value of their business relative to their enterprise value, it was like almost all in debt and a tiny slither of equity. So any increase in enterprise value is all going to go to the equity. It's going to double or triple it. So I get all of that. It's not. I think over time it's going to come down to execution and who delivers. And I can tell you that that HHS news, like we are thrilled about that. That is going to even though we didn't need it, it's going to make our business so much more profitable if it happens.
Zia outlines a lot about Michigan. He was saying off the camera and the opportunity that's presenting and how you're executing there. And what I think a lot of people oversee that state, doesn't get a lot of attention, but quietly you're going about your way and maybe outline a couple things as to what's maybe exceeded your expectations pertaining to that state.
Yeah, so absolutely. Well, what's exceeded our expectations is the size of the market is
throwing up $270 million a month.
Big money.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So overall, the size, and that was part of our original bet, was we thought Michigan was going to become the biggest, the biggest state, which I believe it is now, from at least in terms of the legal market. And the good news is, the bad news was when we finally closed on that deal 7 months after we signed it. It was right into the teeth of the distress in the market, and Michigan was the poster boy for a tough market, right? Like April of last year when we closed. but we feel like we took decisive action. All of the, or a big chunk of those expense cuts we took in the spring of last year were in Michigan because we needed to right size it relative to the opportunity. It was no longer, well, it's all going to go to the sky and we don't have to care about what we spend. So we really took a hard look at everything we were doing, at the store openings we had scheduled and all of that, and really sort of focused on a little bit less, we need to grow like crazy, more like we need to get this business to be sustainable and profitable. And the good news is we're pretty close.
Yeah.
We've made huge progress in terms of our gross margins. Also, we've gotten some help from the regulators.
Yeah.
As I think I mentioned to you, the regulators, new regulator came in January, and they started showing up at these grows and manufacturers and saying, hey, give me your records. You made all this distillate. That doesn't make sense based upon how much flour you grew. Which was because there was a legal distillate and other products making their way from the illicit market into the legal market, and that has largely stopped. So that was one of the things. And the other thing was, especially with the extreme compression that happened into the end of last year when people were selling, or companies were selling products for lower than their cost to produce just because they needed to turn it into cash.
Yeah.
That seems to have abated.
Yeah.
There is less cultivation online this year in terms of the legal stuff in Michigan than there was the prior year, similar to California. And those things are acting as a little bit more of a tailwind. I mean, it's not like pricing's awesome.
Yeah.
You can still.
It's getting there though. You look at the BDS and you look at all the analytics, and Michigan's trending to the upside.
Yeah.
So I mean, when we're looking at the capital markets activity, we're shoring up the balance sheet. When looking at the TSX uplisting, I mean, I think it's safe to say that you and the management team have been proactive versus reactive in the space.
Fair
So
assessment.
what's next for TerrAscend?
Yeah.
Where's the puck going?
Well, it's funny. I mean, we are now, what we've been talking, some of the conversations I was seeing in the last couple of days is now that we've stopped, being subject to, fire drills practically every week or lots of really complicated stuff. We had a few, as he likes to call it, like we landed 4 747s in sequence within, a minute of each other, say last fall, in terms of, the Polaris loan, and then refinancing our Michigan debt and paying part of it down, and then the canopy equitization, and there were a couple other things in there as well. And even through the first half of this year with the TSX and Maryland, those were our fires, but really busy, getting those 4 Maryland stores done by the end of Q2, the TSX, the Stearns Bank, 10 and change % loan. All of those things are now mostly done, raising the $21 million for the listing, which, as you know, was not easy. Now,
You tired at all?
no, never.
We got plenty more to go.
But now we're able to focus on the things that, were like the nice to haves and not the must haves. And, with Ziad's experience in retail at Walgreens, and I forgot how many stores they had, 17,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to be even more focused on, the things that could further improve our retail, drive further same-store sales growth, drive better margin.
What was that like? Things. Just searching for the right CEO of this company from an operational standpoint. Yeah, you got to go out and find somebody. But what was that whole process like?
It was hard. It was, we let the old CEO go in like April of, 2020 or 2021.
Yep.
And I was looking for a while for a new CEO. We actually needed a few new top people, which we've now filled all those positions. But it was like, for some reason, it hit me in the summer of that year that like, why is it that I meet with, being a fund manager over all these years and having tons of companies come to see me in my office, like, that's very similar to the interview process for a candidate. But why do I love that? The interviewing companies. Why do I love that and feel like I'm pretty good at knowing like who's full of crap and who lives in and all of that stuff? Being a pretty good judge of that. But I really did not like interviewing people and sort of didn't attack it with the same zest. And in the summer of that year, I decided I'm going to spend 10 hours a week. At least, for the next few months to make sure that we find, a new CEO or president, which is what we brought Ziad in.
Discipline.
And some of these other positions. And the amazing thing was, Ziad was the first interview. after that. So I didn't even worked on the other positions. But Ziad was that first call that I did, and I knew. I mean, you've gotten to know him. He's a great guy. I think investors have gotten to know him.
He understands operation, right?
Understands operations. He's a good person. He's got a great heart. He's inspiring to the workers, but also holds them to task. And just he's got so much experience. I mean, I'll tell you, I felt for that. Zia didn't start till January 1st of the following year, so I was alone for almost a year. And not alone, I mean, we had Keith and everybody, but it felt like everything was on my shoulders. That was the beginning of the sort of the downturn when things went bad, and it felt lonely. And now with Ziad, it's like, especially now that he's almost 2 years in, he's up to speed. My calendar is like that for when those first 9 months when I was all alone. My calendar, like every minute was scheduled. I mean, I didn't have time. I didn't have 5 minutes in the middle of the day. And now that he's so up to speed, I mean, if you saw my calendar, I mean, I'm still on the phone all day, but it's more impromptu calls. But I've got multiple, hour or longer open blocks in my calendar on a daily basis, and it's helped me get back to focusing on some other stuff.
That's an entrepreneur story in itself. Yeah. All on your own for a year. That can be overwhelming, right?
It was tough. It was overwhelming, and it was because what the environment was like.
Yeah.
And it was I think entrepreneurs are able to sort of put most of it aside. Zia and I have talked about sometimes even like in the cannabis industry, even now that things are going pretty well, like sometimes you need that overnight to wake up refreshed and reinvigorated.
Absolutely. We feel it in a lot of ways. Yeah. It's like, what are we talking about today? Putting out podcasts, there's just not a lot of content, but needless to say, it's definitely turned a corner. I know you focus on the things that you're in right now and doing it really, really well, but I got to ask this. We've talked about this, Anthony, about this big ballot initiative coming up on November 8th in Florida. You guys ever entertained? Are you looking at Florida?
No, we were just talking about this right before
we
came on. I'm sorry. We are looking. It's a huge market, obviously.
Huge.
But it's a very competitive market.
Totally.
And it's not a market that you want to be a second mover because there's no license caps. It's a similar argument to what we make about Michigan, and I should have made it before, which is like, when you get Michigan right, and we're getting it right now, your opportunity is unlimited. We get 150 stores or 200 plus stores. Well, that's the same case in Florida, and it's not us. That's one of the leaders there. So my view is, and what we just joked about was I said, if whenever rec's coming, based upon what we did in Maryland, just let me know a month before rec starts, and hopefully we'll be able to be there and have a presence. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I sort of have no desire to be in a medical market that in that period before it goes rec, because that's the worst period of time, because everybody's building up their capacity for rec and they only have medical demand.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
I saw these companies cram into Pennsylvania, but now you're starting to see kind of everybody take their own little roadmap. You're seeing Kim dip into the Georgia a bit, but it's had some conversations. It's still the early stages. You look at a state like Texas, 30 million people, I know it's still in its infancies, but I think you're going to start to see more and more companies kind of create their own roadmap and get into states that nobody else really is.
Absolutely. I think for us, we we talked about it Michigan heading east and then up and down the East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
There is, as much as a lot of companies who have much bigger footprints will tell you, we can handle the whole country and we've got our SOPs and all of that.
Learned a lesson there, right?
Even being in a different time zone is the kind of thing that makes communication a little bit tougher. And when you can't jump in a car and get to a location within 3 hours or something like that, it just makes it tougher. And also people in different parts of the country have different work ethics and all the rest. So we really
not easy.
Yeah, we really want to our view is that if we're going to hit another state, it's got to really clear a high bar because it does take a little bit of focus away from the states you're in.
Yeah.
And we're all competing with mom and pop operators in those states where that's their only business, and that is not we think that all of our more institutionalized ways and all the things that we've learned help us compete with all of that. But it's still a disadvantage that they're watching the store and we're watching 38
It's
stores.
no longer grow at all costs. This is now a show me industry, and you need to be tactical when you're going.
Well, that's great,
You gotta
though.
make
And
money.
you have to make money most.
That's great,
importantly,
though, for the industry, right? It's great to see that we finally understand that. You're actually seeing the requirements that are taking place to make that happen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that cuts both ways in terms of us being deep and not wide.
Yeah.
Especially a couple of years ago, we were so leveraged to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania became a tough market, obviously. But now it is. We feel like from an operator, like I sort of felt back in towards the end of that, like when we made the changes in management and all that, I felt like we were like failing upwards a little bit. Like our numbers were still good up until we drew guidance in that summer, but now it just feels like the success that we're
good.
driving it's based upon solid ground, and
There's a foundation.
There's a foundation.
Culture. Like Ziad might give you some details, and maybe we'll get some details tomorrow about. We have ways to measure employee engagement. We said that survey saying like, would you recommend TerrAscend to one of your friends who's looking for a job or something like that? Like when people are not happy, they don't say yes.
That matters.
And those are the type of things that help sustain.
Bring this guy in.
There's the
Talking all about him, huh?
He's got a mic. All right.
He's already mic'd up.
Yeah. I was talking to you.
So we're talking a lot about execution stuff. He said nothing but great things about you, but how's the relationship been with him since?
Oh gosh! Look, the relation started with a.
You too.
I know. I've shared this so many times. The relationship started with 2 promises on the farm in Boonton,
All right.
and then Jason talked about his dreams, about his inspiration, about his relentlessness, about what he wanted to do.
Obsessive.
And then he goes and he wanted to test and try. Hey, am I up for that? And I said, yeah, all of that is great. We have to align on 2 things. And he said, what are they? I said, number 1 is we close the door and then we debate everything on the table. You want the best for the company, I want the best for the company. And then we convince each other and we make a decision based on the facts. We open the door, we go in one voice, and we never look back. He said, easy, that's how I work.
Do you think he's been instrumental in building more and more of a culture within the company? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just talking about the engagement.
What is the most
measurement and all
important?
that.
What is the most important facet of the culture to you within the company?
Yeah, I think engaging the team member and putting team members first. Because if you cannot win team members, customers will never see it and will never win.
Right.
And team members are the face of the brand.
Yeah.
Jason and I are behind the scenes setting the strategy, but who's really touching the customer and the patients? Our team member. And then really being genuine and having a culture of compliance where we protect our team members is where they'll walk on fire for you. Look at our turnover. We've talked about that before. The turnover is reflecting this. The longevity in an industry that's still young is reflecting this. And that's what gains, what brings more momentum. to the
Did
company.
you see that in this space and like when being interviewed for the position? Because you ran how many? Was it 300-400 Walgreens locations at one time?
Yeah, more.
17,000.
Yeah. So in 2004 to 2007, we were opening one store every 19 hours for 3 years. In Florida, we had a total of 700. When I saw the healthcare clinic operation, it was all healthcare clinics in the nation.
Wow.
But look, I'll tell you, when I came in, the one thing that never changed is Jason's belief in the business. Jason investment from a time perspective. I worked with a lot of founders and a lot of leaders, and they thought sexy and they thought that they cared about the business. He's a guy who starts at 7, 8, and midnight he's still going.
I know.
I
get text.
Yes.
So am I, though.
Yes. So we were joking the other day about a recreational event that he had, and I texted him through text. I said, be honest, I'll never share this. That's just 24 hours ago. I said, when you're having fun, what percentage of your wheels are spinning on the business?
Right.
He ignored my question.
So what would you say when working for a company like Walgreens, when it came to everyday execution, that alone builds a name and a brand because people know what it stands for. So based off of that, what's some of the stuff that you did that you're going to implement to build TerrAscend as this brand, which really is going to, create this whole industry as we start to identify what they stand
Yeah.
for.
Look, we're investing a lot in our team members from in onboarding, all the way from onboarding to an unfortunate event of exit interviews.
Yeah.
So whether you're starting with us and we're acquiring great talent every day, every week. So we invest at the beginning, and as you're leaving, whether it's a geographical leave, whether it's an engagement leave, we exit interview and we try to learn as much as possible what
Yeah.
could we have done better. So
Yeah.
just being humble and learning from our own mistakes and trying to improve every day is what's helping us get better. I got called by two of my peers in the industry to say, look, we're hearing a lot from your team members about how much you're investing in our youth member. Can you share some? So
Yeah.
I think investing in the team members, having the quality of the product and the quality of the service, so they could be proud of what they're offering, is another huge driver to that as well.
Ask you guys both the question. People that are in this industry are passionate about it. Each of you answer this question. Is this the greatest job you ever had?
It's the most challenging
Yeah.
job I've ever had, and I feel like to this point it's been not from a monetary perspective necessarily yet, value of the stock.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's been the most rewarding, especially this last year.
Where we've been able to turn the ship in a really
Tough environment.
like that feels good. I mean, I like
I
to
mean,
try to do shit
it's
that's
not an
hard.
easy thing to do.
Yeah,
That was a hard task.
it's hard. It's hard. And we've had,
Yeah, but look, if you look at the end, Jason is answering the question with an N of 3. He had a job at his fund, and we know how successful he was there.
Yeah.
He has a job in a pharma company, and we know how successful he was there, and that's your third job.
Yeah.
That's my number 16. So I have an N that is a little bit bigger. That's my 16th role. And I can tell you, I agree with everything you said, but I think I've never had a job that I'm more excited to get up in the morning
Yeah, and that's what do you hear?
and then close the day in a longer day, like
Yeah.
knowing, Jason always say it. You have to be thirsty and hungry for punishment, and then you reset in the
Glutton for
morning.
punishment.
Yeah, and you reset in the morning and
You
you start
said that
again.
before.
I feel like everybody
Yes.
in the C-suites of cannabis companies
Yes.
is kind of like masochists. Like it's
It is.
You,
Right.
you,
I
you
tried
gotta
with-
love it.
I tried with Seattle. I don't know if I ever tweeted. It's like, thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yes.
You know, like,
And another's coming.
Yes.
Quite quickly.
Yes.
Let's get to know you guys more at a personal level. What was your first job ever in your life?
phone for food. I started a business washing dishes at like a ribs place, but I started like Uber Eats or DoorDash. I started a very similar type company in
Did you really?
1989. It was called Phone for Food. I went and did deals with all the restaurants in my town. Nobody delivered. And I said, I'm going to take the orders. We're going to collate all the menus. We'll take the orders and we'll place them with you and deliver them. I worked at it. I got 20% from the restaurant, and then we got tips and
Seriously?
delivery fees. And I sold it. I
like
sold
you
it
know how-
a year later when I went away to college. I sold it for 10 grand to like somebody else in my high school. And it was like I was like 20 years ahead of 30 years ahead of my
That's
time.
crazy.
I knew that was exactly what you're going to say. That's incredible. What are you?
My first job, I was an international student, and as an international student, so there's in-state tuition, there's out-state tuition, and there's international tuition.
Yeah.
So in order to go from international tuition to an in-state tuition, you had to find a 20 hours a week job on campus. So in pharmacy school, found a job in a research lab
Okay.
with a guy called Dr. Bond, and I worked with rats and mice. And I thrive on dealing with people, and there were no people in this lab. It was the most boring job I've ever had. I couldn't wait until it was done to go into.
Did he give you
yeah.
a volleyball with Wilson?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was about the paradoxical effect of alpha antagonists. So, yeah.
That's what you
Wow.
tell him. Next time you'll ask him about how he got shot at when he was a pharmacist.
Yeah,
Okay, let's. Should we bring that up?
Yeah,
Or is that a
that's,
buzz?
There's-
You
Yeah.
said it. We got to go there now.
it was scary. I was still working at Walgreens, and my wife was pregnant with Zoe, our daughter, who's now 15. And just a car passing next to me, they shot 6 times. One bullet went between me and the steering wheel. And the second day, same car, same area, got a 15-year-old in the head. It turned out to be a gang initiation. They needed to prove that they can kill somebody to get
Yeah.
into the gang.
When was
So
this?
that was in 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
And maybe next time we come on, we'll talk about Ziad and I both. Ziad was very excited. There's some super expensive personality test that this company does. What was the name of the
Yes.
company? It's
Yeah,
like
so-
30 grand or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We got a 50 grand for free, and then we did a study for all our
But he
team.
kept calling me, make sure you're not going to cancel on your test. You're going to do it. So we finally got the results, and next time maybe we'll come on with the result. It was all these different measurements of like, what is it, like creativity.
Yeah.
And,
So Jason and I would have 100 interactions together. There are 3 or 4 that we like butt heads, and we joke it up, and we say like, oh, that makes sense because you're this and I'm this, and then there are 3 areas that we complement each other pretty nicely.
That's good though, right? You like a little bit of challenge, but at the end of the day, progress is everything, right?
Yep. You want somebody that's gonna, be able to be good at sort of the things that you're not great at. That's gonna complement you. And I think we complemented each other pretty well. And we really haven't. Have we gotten in any real fights?
Never.
No.
We have not.
No. And that's with them living in my house all the time.
that's
When I was in New
exactly.
York.
Which I can't do it anymore now that you moved.
Stepbrothers here, right?
Yeah.
You ever get this question asked you where, if we're having this conversation 2 years from now, how do you envision the company 2 years from now?
I'll start by saying, and I'm going to steal a little thunder from our tomorrows.
Don't give away too
Yeah,
much.
but look, we have few differentiators. I think one of them is our growth story. And look, you could be emotionally attached to a company, you could be emotionally attached to a brand, you could say what you want, but data is fact. And if you look at our company and the growth trajectory that we are in, organically, there's no other story that is comparable to ours.
Yeah.
So in 2 years, we will see our revenue in a place that is almost double where we are today.
Yeah.
And with efficient operation on each line, starting by the gross margin, going to the OpEx, all the way to below the EBITDA line, and generating the cash flow that we're excited about.
And that in itself helps with the overall company name, brand, and what it stands for, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Gents, have a nice rest. And you got a big day tomorrow. Long travel here today. But listen, I appreciate you guys checking into the podcast.
Thanks for coming in.
Yes, as well. Leave some comments below if you want any questions, any feedback from both Ziad and Jason. Let us know. Appreciate you checking in. We'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate everybody for logging on. Always remember to subscribe to our channel. We want to reach that 50,000 mark. So let us get there. And we're going to give away a big prize. So keep in touch. We appreciate you logging on. We'll check with you guys later this week.